Hello shooting riders, it's T-5 days till the hairdresser's open. Okay, so this should be the last time you see shaggy haired Greg. I don't mind having long hair-ish, but it's getting a bit excessive now. In this episode, we are kind of like on episodes, aren't we? You know, I really intended that, but anyway, in this episode, I'm not going to do shoot my review. Well, I am going to do shoot my review, but I'm doing it of my own review of my own thing. Anyway, I'm just going to tell you about a little trip that I did on the Adventure Spec Yamaha T700, and how I broke lockdown and kind of just the impact that had on me, and a bit of a review of some of the images that I took and tell you a little bit about how I shot them. Okay, so I hope that you are well. I hope that your head is well, that your body is well, and that your finances are well, and your family and friends are well as well. And those are kind of areas that have all been at risk, I guess, over the last year. I'm very grateful that the majority of those things are fine for me, and I hope they are for you as well. I was really surprised myself that the one element of those that kind of really took a beating recently was the head, and I don't really kind of go into it in too much detail. It's not really a sob story, but I found the end of this last lockdown really tough, and it made me realize not being able to ride my bike. I mean, I'm not the kind of rider where I put my bike away for winter. I ride all year, and it really made me realize like how much of a release that is, and a bit of therapy. I don't know how you feel about it, about your time on the bike, but for me, I think it really is a bit of a therapy to kind of all of the stuff that's going on in the real world. I love my life, I love my family, I love my house, all the rest of it, but when that's all you have day in, day out, it can be a bit intense. And so being out on the bike I describe it as a pressure valve that every now and then you've got to release a bit of the pressure of just everyday life. And not being able to do that, kind of the pressure's just built up, and it really did take its toll. So lockdown is now over, not over, but the first stage of it is over here in the UK. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go down to Adventure Spec to pick up the Tenere T700 for a project we've got on. So Adventure Spec have got 3 bikes. There's the CRF 250L, the CRF 450L, and the T700. And so we're developing some new luggage. You'll be familiar with the Magadan panniers. We've got some new Magadans coming and some extra bits and bobs. So I went down to pick up that bike to shoot some media with it. And it was such a relief to get out of the house. You kind of, when you're kind of taking all the rules really seriously and you're staying at home because you've been asked to stay at home, you kind of assume that the world has stopped outside your kind of 4 walls, but it hasn't, it really hasn't, and it was a real relief to get out of the house. I took the train down from Newcastle down to West Yorkshire to pick up the bike, and I thought I was going to sleep all the way down because I've been so tired because the kids have been getting up in the night, but I didn't. I literally had my eyes glued to the window for the whole journey, just watching the world go by, and just seeing people going about their everyday business. It was the world is still turning, and that was a relief. So I jumped down to Mytholmroyd near Hebden Bridge, which is where Adventure Spec is. Some people kind of think that Adventure Spec is a shop, but it's not. It's really just a warehouse here in the UK. We've got a warehouse in America, and we're opening one in Europe. So really it's just Chris and Dave who own the business. They're in there taking orders, packing orders, sorting all the stuff out and getting stuff shipped out to you. So went in, had a bit of a top secret meeting with the guys about some of the gear we've got coming, which I can't wait to talk to you about, but I can't do it yet. And then I jumped on the T700 and rode it all the way back. And yeah, it was it's an interesting bike, the T700. You may have seen kind of Dave's review of it. He took it down to Morocco on a long distance trip. It's interesting that for some people that bike is a lightweight bike. If you're coming from a big kind of GS or a 1200 or a bigger Tiger or something like that, it's seen as a lightweight bike. And you see people like kind of Paul Terra's riding it like a trials bike, and I mean, he must be huge because he makes it look tiny, and obviously he's like one of the best in the world, so he knows what he's doing. But for me, I see that T700 as a big bike, as a heavyweight bike. And I think if you've ridden trails and you kind of ride off-road, you'll know kind of we'll put it this way, you only need to drop it a couple of times and then you really know kind of how big and heavy it is. And for me, it's not a dirt bike at all. I mean, you could ride it on gravel roads. I would ride it on gravel roads fine, but anything where the chances are I'm gonna have to jump off it or fall off it or whatever, no thank you. It's just too big, too heavy. And the way the weight is distributed on that bike as well is it's very, very top heavy. So I've talked to a few people about this. I was talking to Michael Guy at MCN last week about this, but it's like, it's very unforgiving, and the progression from standing up to falling down is very, very kind of sudden. So even just walking it around the garage, it feels like it wants to fall away from you. It carries its weight so high. And so when it does start to go, it just goes. Whereas I haven't ridden the 790, the KTM 790, but the science behind that, the engineering behind that is to carry the weight low, hence the kind of odd fuel tanks. And when the weight is carried low, the center of gravity is lower, and it is more progressive in terms of when it's going to go. Anyway, I digress. It's still a great bike. For the trip that I did, I don't know, it was like 100 miles, something like that, from Hebden Bridge back up to where I live up near Newcastle. So I just kind of punched into my sat nav, kind of go the twisty routes up towards Richmond, up into North Yorkshire and then up. And for those twisties, it's awesome. I've been riding my PR7 a lot, and compared to that, the T700 is super smooth. It's a twin, it's not a single. It's definitely got more power than the PR7. You twist it, and that kind of exhaust roars, and you get up to speed much, much quicker than the PR7, where you have to the PR7 will do it, but you've got to work it to get up to that kind of 70, 80 miles an hour, whereas the T700 twist and go, and I dare say more powerful bikes will be even quicker. But it's a wonderful road bike. If I was going to go off and do the NC the North Coast 500 up in Scotland, yeah, it'd be great. I would take my PR7. But it's a good bike. It's a good bike for road. So anyway, I digress. Maybe I'll edit a lot of this bollocksy shit out. So as you can see from the footage, I was using a GoPro, and I've just bought one of the new GoPro Hero 9s. And it's kind of the GoPro that I think everyone's been waiting for. The stabilization in this camera is mind-bending. I jumped up from a Hero 5, which I hardly ever used anymore, up to the Hero 9. And the Hero 9, I mean, I think I can do most of what I need to do now with a GoPro Hero 9 and a DSLR, or I'm looking at my Panasonic GH5, and that and this GoPro is probably everything I need to make movies from now on. So I had the Hero 9 also paired up with this Django Designs gripper mount. So this is something that the guys there sent to me to try out, and it's designed to kind of go on your on the front of your helmet, but for me, the versatility of being able to take it off and move it around to get forward-facing and reverse-facing shots is great. Like in filmmaking and storytelling, there's a very simple kind of, one of the simple rules is you want to see what the camera is seeing, and then you also want to do a reverse shot to see who the person is that's doing the seeing, if that makes sense. So you can kind of really easily kind of clip this on your rucksack or your helmet, and you get your point of view shot. And then for me, I kind of turn it around and clip it on the screen of the T700, and you get that reverse shot. And like I said, just the stabilization is epic, absolutely epic, absolutely love it. So just working my way up towards Richmond, and it started to get cold, so I figured there's an opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Adventure Spec layering system. So I was wearing my linesman jacket with armor in it, and then underneath that I had my Baltic hybrid jacket, and in my Krieger T18 rucksack I had my camera and also my Baltic insulated jacket. Now, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to wear the insulated, but I'm glad I did. I thought it was going to be quite hot, but it was getting pretty cold. So at this point I jumped out, put the insulated on, and then put my linesman jacket on over the top. And that's kind of the whole principle, the whole point of the ADV layering system, is that you just wear what you need when you need it, and it's really quick. As long as you're prepared to stop and adjust what you're wearing, you end up riding in far more comfort. And this was a great help, being able to put that insulated layer on. It really does a great job keeping the cold out. But I would say that because I work with Adventure Spec, but you know, go try it with something else. It's a great system. And so a big part of what I do is shoot and ride. Maybe that's what you're watching. So kind of stop, take lots of pictures. So I was shooting video with my GoPro and shooting stills with my Canon 5D Mark IV with a 40mm pancake lens. So this is me stopping up. I guess when you're riding, you're just looking at interesting spaces, interesting kind of backgrounds. Something kind of captures the environment you're riding. I wasn't riding any dirt, I was just on road today. It's really handy actually when you're on your own, because there's no kind of pressure to keep up, or you don't feel like you're slowing people down. So this is me stopping up, getting the camera out. The guys kind of take the piss out of me a lot because I use this like foreground blur kind of technique, but I quite like the way that putting something in the foreground gives the shot some depth. I maybe do take it a bit to the extreme, but you know, whatever. It's kind of just something that I enjoy doing. You know, there are no real rules. So yeah, this is me shooting the T700, and but yeah, I get quite low. Again, I kind of think that a lot of that comes from reading comics when I was a kid. I used to read a lot of 2000 AD, Judge Dredd, a lot of manga, Akira. You won't be surprised to hear, but and in those comics, a lot of the illustrations, a lot of the artists use very, very extreme angles to kind of create really dynamic compositions. And I think that a lot of the way I compose my images, my photos, and make my photos probably comes from that. So you'll often find me kind of crawling on my hands and knees to get the right angle. So and then yeah, just trying to capture some stuff here that tells a little bit of the story of the day. So some of the Yorkshire scenery, the stone walls, you know. One thing I've learned from this community of shoot and ride is that you kind of assume that everyone thinks and sees the same things that you do, but actually if you're in Portugal or Australia or Tokyo or Japan or whatever, and you're part of this community, actually seeing a little bit of the British countryside is really interesting. You know, I see it all day, every day, so you kind of don't see it, do you? But actually, some of these hills, stone walls, hedgerows, sheep, are really exotic views to some people that might be used to seeing just very dry, barren landscapes. So yeah, that's what I was trying to do, and this is just capture a little bit. And I'm also kind of shooting stuff that I'm going to use for Adventure Spec in the future. But yeah, a little bit of a photo essay of the day, of the journey home, really. And I had this like kind of crazy soundtrack to this part of the day. It was just like a field full of sheep, properly going for it. There weren't any lambs yet, so they were probably all pregnant and about to pop, but yeah, it was fun. They were very curious. Okay, so this section I think I'd kind of put the camera away, and I was kind of ready to just kind of get my head down and get home. but I was coming up over the tops, and it had just started to get a little bit wet, so at the bottom of this valley. So I'd stopped and put my Adventure Pack Aquapack jacket on, and as I came up I could see literally there was like a wall of weather coming down the valley, and on one side it was beautiful green blue skies and just this like wall of cloud kind of coming across, and I knew the weather was coming, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to stop, but I was like, no, I've got to get this shot. So I stopped the bike and I jumped off and I kind of ran over to this wall, and again to try and get this like foreground background kind of composition, and I was just too late. I was literally the shot that I'd ridden past had gone by the time I got there. It wasn't kind of as 50-50, and the weather had come across and pushed the good sunshine out. But yeah, I just snapped a couple of shots and I turned around, and by the time I got back to my bike it was properly snowing, like sleet. I was just mad because like I started the day in complete sunshine and was prepared for like, you know, a bit cold but absolutely beautiful weather. I think mentally I was like, winter's done, you know. That was such a hard shit winter. The sun's out, that's it, it's spring, summer, no more bad weather. But I was totally wrong. And it didn't last very long, but it was pretty wild, this weather coming in. Yeah, it just goes to show you kind of really need to be prepared this time of year. I could easily have been out without any waterproof gear and I would have been pretty stuffed for the rest of the day. And then half an hour later, it was literally like Caribbean blue skies again. And this is coming up, one of my favourite bits is coming up. You come through North Yorkshire and you're coming up past Stanhope and you're into County Durham, and some of the roads here, I mean, they're wild. They're like the wildest, kind of most barren, remote, isolated parts of England, really. You'll have wilder stuff up in the north of Scotland, but in terms of like the north of England, it's very, very deserted, and it's you got the kind of the big moorland there, and the wind absolutely hammers through. But when the weather's clear and if you can't feel the wind, it's absolutely yeah, it's stunning, absolutely stunning. I love this bit coming up towards like Walsingham and Stanhope area. So yeah, and so again, I'd totally convinced myself that I wasn't going to get the camera out, but I couldn't help it. I stopped, and I've been following Gorm Moto, Gorm Moto on Instagram, and he's really kind of cultivated this like technique of really beautiful, almost like advertising photography, and he's always in the shot, and it's kind of made me realize that in terms of like the shoot and ride vibe, having the camera there, having the bike in shot is great, but actually putting a person into that shot really changes the dynamic. It actually makes it far more interesting. So it's more challenging to do because you need to do self timers and all the rest of it. So on this, I kind of pulled up, and I really wanted to kind of get this shot that kind of showed the road like disappearing off into the distance, and just to kind of capture like the majestic kind of scene that I was experiencing. And then I got my little tripod out and set it up on a timer and did a few shots of me kind of hanging off the bike, walking towards the bike, walking away from the bike and stuff like that. And yeah, it kind of worked. It's fun. I've done a few more since that the other day when I was out with the PR7. But I think, yeah, just constantly kind of being inspired by the people and involving what you do, you know. There's only so many times you can take the same shot of your bike. And actually, once you start opening yourself up to kind of what other people are doing, you realize that there's a lot of nuance in there and a lot of space to get creative and experiment with. I guess we all want to be influenced by other people, but find our own voice and our own take on it. So I don't necessarily want to be doing stuff that's kind of exactly like Gorm Moto, but I'm more than happy to kind of give him a nod and tell him, or tell you, Gorm, if you're watching it, I love what you do, and you've definitely kind of inspired me and moved me in a certain direction. Anyway, that's it. It was a quick little trip. I'm really happy to be back on the bike again. I've been out shooting more. You guys have been out shooting loads. I kind of didn't look at the shoot and ride hashtag on Instagram for a couple of weeks, and I spent like, I don't know, it felt like half an hour just kind of flicking through all the stuff that had been posted last night. So thank you. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying watching it. If you enjoy shoot and ride and what it stands for, getting out on the bike with the camera and capturing what you've got, and sharing it with a like-minded community. You're more than welcome to join us. If you subscribe to my newsletter, I will send you a Shoot and Ride mini sticker. If you want a bigger heavy duty sticker, you're more than welcome to buy one at the Shoot and Ride shop along with some other stuff. All the money raised goes towards commissioning cool people doing cool things and cool graphics and all the stuff that I don't normally get to do in my kind of client work life. You guys help create a really kind of creative space and give me the ability to work with some really fantastic people. So thank you. I hope you enjoy this spring's riding, and I will see you soon.